Boeing and NASA recently conducted a briefing, signaling that Starliner is finally on track to launch crew members in just a few weeks. The program has faced numerous challenges, including budget issues, delays, and flight anomalies. These setbacks have significantly postponed the maiden flight, originally slated to occur around 7 years ago. However, with a launch date set for early May, the situation appears poised for change. Over the past few months, Boeing and NASA have been diligently addressing various issues that arose, particularly concerning flammable tape used inside the spacecraft and its impact on parachute safety margins. At present, they express confidence that these previous concerns have been adequately resolved and preparations are nearly complete for liftoff. Stay tuned as we talk about his historic test and if Starliner can compete with SpaceX's Crew Dragon. During the briefing, more details emerged about the current status of the Starliner vehicle and its imminent launch. Notably, Starliner has completed 2 missions, OFT-1 and OFT-2, both of which were uncrewed test flights. The first mission failed to reach the International Space Station, ISS, necessitating the second mission, which encountered a few issues but was ultimately considered a success. The upcoming mission marks a significant milestone as it will carry NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams to the ISS. They are expected to stay on the station for approximately 8 days before returning to land. Officials emphasize that preparations for the Crewed Flight Test (CFT) mission are progressing smoothly, with a launch scheduled for no earlier than May 1st. Interestingly, the specific launch date is less determined by Starliner's readiness and more by the busy schedule of the ISS. The station currently has a full manifest of incoming vehicles, which has led to the delay of Starliner's launch from late April to early May. Mark Nappy, Boeing's vice president and Starliner program manager, even mentioned that the spacecraft and its United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket could be ready to roll to the launch pad at Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida this month. In simpler terms, Starliner and its 2-person crew are all set for their upcoming flight. While discussing the vehicle, it was mentioned that NASA is finalizing a few certification items for the crewed flight test, which includes reviewing data from a recent parachute test related to the soft links issue. Despite this, they expressed confidence, stating that everything was in good shape. Mark Nappy further elaborated that their main focus has been on ensuring the vehicle is flight-ready and addressing the 2 issues encountered last summer: the parachute system and the flammability issue with the tape. He assured that these issues have been resolved and they are now behind them. Recently, the company began fueling the spacecraft in preparation for the upcoming crewed flight test. The Starliner spacecraft, comprising a reusable crew module and expendable service module, was relocated to the hazardous processing area at Boeing's Commercial Crew and Cargo Processing Facility at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. This fueling process is expected to take a little over 2 weeks. The propellant loading operation involves a team of specially trained technicians, fluids propellant, and electrical test engineers. During the operation, technicians wear what's known as a SCAPE suit, which stands for Self-Contained Atmospheric Protective Ensemble. This suit provides protection from any hazardous materials throughout the test. Meanwhile, test teammates monitor the spacecraft, including sensors, valves, and the surrounding environment. Once the fueling operation is complete, final closed-out activities will commence for the spacecraft's rollout from the factory to United Launch Alliance's Vertical Integration Facility at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. These activities involve various tasks, such as removing propellant and access panels, placing environmental covers over the spacecraft's thrust nozzle outlets, performing thermal protection system work, checking the spacecraft's final weight and center of gravity, and loading it onto the transport vehicle. All these procedures are expected to occur in only a few weeks from now, marking the final steps before the spacecraft is ready for launch. It's been nearly 2 years since the last Starliner launch, the OFT-2 mission, which took place on May 19, 2022. Despite the success of this test, the turnaround time for the next launch wasn't as swift as expected. Boeing faced numerous challenges following the second test flight. During the OFT-2 mission, two orbital maneuvering and attitude control system (OMAC) thrusters failed during the orbital insertion burn. Fortunately, the spacecraft managed to compensate using the remaining OMAC thrusters, supplemented by the reaction control system (RCS) thrusters. Additionally, a couple of the RCS thrusters used for maneuvering Starliner also failed during docking due to low chamber pressure. Moreover, some thermal systems designed to cool the spacecraft exhibited colder temperatures than anticipated, requiring engineers to actively manage them during docking. Despite these complications, the spacecraft successfully docked with the ISS and eventually returned to Earth for a soft landing. Engineering teams had to address these issues, but concurrently, the company was also working on the spacecraft intended for the first flight test. Interestingly, the Starliner set to launch crew members is the same one used during OFT-1, not OFT-2. Since its original flight, this spacecraft has undergone upgrades and alterations to ensure its safety and capability for a trip to the ISS. Regarding the mission profile, the Crewed Flight Test, CFT, follows a similar flight profile to the original missions. During a recent briefing, NASA highlighted that the CFT flight serves as the introduction of crew into the vehicle systems. Many flight test objectives focus on how the interface between crew and vehicle functions. NASA emphasized the importance of understanding if the vehicle performs as expected with humans in the loop. Test objectives range from evaluating the performance of the spacecraft's life support systems to testing manual controls in case automated systems fail. The two pilots, Wilmore and Williams, will test the ability to manually control and orient the spacecraft during a day-long flight to the ISS. They will also practice maneuvering during the 6.5-hour trip from the station back to the ground. In the broader context, the mission primarily serves as a test to certify the vehicle for crewed flight. Assuming all goes according to plan, complete certification is expected in November or December. This would pave the way for the first official Starliner crewed mission, named Starliner 1, sometime in 2025. Instead of a multi-day trip, this mission will involve a larger crew and a longer stay docked at the station for months. At that point, NASA will have multiple commercial vehicles available for crew and cargo transportation. "We are really excited on the station side to get this first crewed Boeing Starliner mission up to the space station," said Dana Weigel, the NASA ISS Deputy Program Manager. "It's always been our goal to have a handful of different vehicles that we can fly to get crew up there." Originally, Boeing and SpaceX were both tasked by NASA in 2014 to develop new commercial crew vehicles with significant funding. Boeing received $4.2 billion, while SpaceX received $2.6 billion. SpaceX's Crew Dragon completed its first astronaut flight in 2020, and in the 4 years since, the company has conducted 11 missions to the ISS, earning a substantial amount of money through large crew contracts. On the other hand, Boeing's delays have resulted in missed opportunities and financial losses. The company has reportedly lost around $1.5 billion due to various charges stemming from these delays. Once the Starliner achieves NASA certification, the initial contract requires Boeing to conduct at least 2 and potentially up to 6 crewed missions to the space station. Starliner is compatible with several launch vehicles, including Atlas V, Delta IV, Falcon 9, and Vulcan Centaur. However, the Delta IV has been retired, and ULA has announced the retirement of the Atlas V, with all remaining launches allocated to customers. Currently, 7 of these launches have been assigned to Starliner flights, providing enough for the first crewed flight test and 6 operational missions. Steve Stick, program manager for NASA's Commercial Crew Program, emphasized the importance of having multiple transportation options to space. He highlighted the challenges inherent in spaceflight and praised the efforts of the Commercial Crew team in bringing two human-rated spacecraft, Dragon and Starliner, to fruition within a 4-year period. Due to the shifting timelines associated with Starliner, several past Starliner astronauts have been reassigned to other missions. One such astronaut, formerly assigned to Starliner, recently flew to the ISS aboard a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. The goal is for Starliner to provide a second option for transporting astronauts to the ISS from U.S. soil, alongside SpaceX. This vision may become a reality in the not-too-distant future. With just a few weeks to go for this historic crewed flight test, it will be interesting to see the progress Boeing has made if it hopes to compete with SpaceX. What do you think? Can the Starliner be as prolific as the SpaceX Crew Dragon? Let us know in the comments below.